Hi everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. We have something new and fresh today. 2021 Lincoln Corsair front-wheel drive 2-liter EcoBoost. Only has 25,000 miles on it. So you might ask, why is this here? Isn't it still under warranty? Well, interesting story. Let's read the customer complaint. He brought a whole booklet of notes and visits to the dealer, and we'll see where this goes. I'm not sure we'll be able to pinpoint this one because the problem is very intermittent. Alright, first let's read the summary from the customer. This is from the appointment form that people fill out online. So, 2021 Lincoln Corsair 4-cylinder automatic. Problem: charging system service soon light comes on intermittently. Has happened at least 12 times. Now, 12 times in 3 years. So, like less than once a month. Dealer first blamed it on the weather, hot and humid. Second time, loose alternator bolt. Several times message would go off, and without it on, dealer did not the car. Next time to dealer, they replaced the grille shutter actuator. So this is an active grille shutter, okay. Next time light went off when they plugged in the tester, couldn't find a problem. Next time car would not start in the garage. Lincoln service came to jump start but would stall when put into reverse, ended flat bedding it to the dealer. Dealer replaced the battery. Next time light came on, called Lincoln Motor Company to start a buyback case. They convinced me to have the dealer look at it one more time before they could start the procedure. I did this. Dealer and a Lincoln rep said the grille shutter was bad again and replaced it on October of 23. Lincoln Motor Company assured if it happened again, they would do the buyback. Happened again, but when I called Lincoln Motor Company, I was told that I was beyond the 3-year Maryland protection law. Still have several months of warranty left, and my wife loves the car. Otherwise, he would get rid of it. I can't blame him. I know it's an intermittent problem and hard to diagnose, but possibly by looking at the wiring diagrams, you may be able to suggest something. I could take it to the dealer for them to correct. We live in Maryland and would like to bring the car home the same day. If you want it longer, we could drive it up 2 cars and leave it. So right away, I'm like, you have to drop it off for at least a week. If this problem happens once a month, I told the owner that chances are very slim we're going to pinpoint this problem. But I'm willing to give it a shot and at least do some basic checks, do some research, and, you know, maybe we'll actually get lucky. So let's see what material the owner brought, dealer receipts, what codes are being set, and go from there. Okay, so the owner took a picture of the message that very intermittently appears on the dash. Charging system service now. Alright. And he documented the dates when it happened. So they bought it brand new in 21. It happened once in 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times in 2022. 1 time in 2023. So I guess they replaced the battery, and then it happened once in 23, and then happened 1, 2, 3 times in 2024. That is insane how intermittent this problem is. So dealer work, they took it to the dealer. They've had it there 4 times already over 2 years, I guess. So in April of 22, they tightened the generator bolt attached to alternator. Okay. Next month, replaced active grille shutter actuator. 6 months later, car would not stay running, so it looks like the battery was indeed bad. They replaced the battery. 1 year later, replaced the active grille shutter again. Okay? So from 22 to 23, it was good for almost a year. Isn't that crazy? and now it seems to be happening a little more often. Let's see what the dealer found. So this is from, again, April of 22. Charging system now light illuminated, intermittently on dash, tightened generator bolt attached to alternator, test drove, verify concern was resolved. Okay, so that was the first visit. Next month, customer was in April due to charging issue. Now the light comes on as well as the battery light, so something changed. Okay. Check cause of charging system fault. Battery light came on. Road test, verify concern. Hook up DTC U012D. Lost communication with generator A control module. Perform pinpoint test F. F2 verify system pass with grille shutter. Actuator disconnected. F2 states install new grille shutter. So this is the flow chart. Remove from bumper. Install grille shutter. Blah blah blah. Retest. Okay. Half a year later, in November, customer states the car will not start at all. So somehow the battery completely failed. They replaced the battery and they're like, okay, you're good. 10 months later, this is 2023, September, customer states that the charging port is not working all the time. And they said all charging ports are working, okay. Electrical system, new alert. Charging system fault U012D. Again, lost communication with module A. Pinpoint test F, so they're going by the same exact flow chart. F1 yes, F2 no. Gain access to connector C1651. Remove front bumper. Disconnected the connector. Retested PCM. Found that U012D came back. Found that the active grille shutter was inoperative. Remove the cooling module to be able to remove the shutters. Installed a new shutters again. Refilled Freon, topped off coolant, clear codes. Road tested okay. And that was it. And now they say it's out of warranty. We can't start the buyback program because you're, I guess it's over 3 years old. But the problem's been happening since the car was new, or at least since it was 1 year old. So what would you guys do here? So let's do the full health report, follow a standard operating procedure, go on all data, look up this code, see if it's set in the PCM, look up that flow chart, look up some wiring diagrams. Okay, so today I'm using the Launch X431 Pro S3 Plus because I thought it would be more up-to-date than my ThinkTool Pros, which I don't even connect to the internet because I like the way it works. But for this 2021, I want the latest and greatest software. So let's just look at the codes. Instrument panel cluster says data received from HVAC invalid, don't care. Invalid data received from instrument panel cluster control module. Okay. Sounder, no idea what that is. PCM, there it is. U012D 0068, lost communication with generator A control module. So that's stored in the PCM. And I was surprised that once you get into the PCM, where is data stream? Where's the live data? We can just read codes, clear codes, special functions, and module information. This is the latest updated launch software. I tried my Autel, the little Autel TPMS, MK808. That one had live data. So I don't know, maybe Autel is ahead of the game on these Lincolns, but for now we don't need live data. Let's look up the code description and wiring diagrams. Alright, here we go. So U012D, lost communication with generator A control module. Go to pinpoint test F. That's what the dealer wrote in their little summary. So, alright, here we go. Pinpoint test F. So let's read the description. The charging system supplies voltage to the battery and the vehicle electrical system through the battery cable. Yes. The PCM monitors the generator output through a LIN communication circuit. PCM uses this LIN circuit to communicate the desired voltage set point to the generator internal voltage regulator. The generator also uses this to communicate the load and the air conditions to the PCM. So description, this is our code, sets that the PCM does not detect communication through the LIN circuit. This can be a result of an open or short in the LIN circuit. This DTC also sets if the generator B+ circuit is open. Okay. Possible sources, generator, PCM, wiring, terminals, or connectors. So F1, check for vehicle for presence of grille shutters. So let me pull up the wiring diagram for this LIN circuit. Actually, I have it printed out right here. So, actually very simple, I guess. Here's the PCM. There's the LIN communication wire. There's our alternator. There's their active grille shutter. So these two items are on the same LIN single wire communication circuit. Now, so keep that in mind. So the dealer says F1 is the vehicle equipped with grille shutters. Yes, go to F2. Go to F2. Retrieve the trouble codes with the grille shutter actuator disconnected. So this is the C1651 disconnect grille shutter actuator. So they went here to the active grille shutter and disconnected C1651. Just unplugged it. Alright, ignition on. Using diagnostic scan tool, perform the PCM self-test. Is the code present? If no, install new active grille shutter actuator. Holy crap, that is ridiculous. So they're saying if this is faulty and it's pulling down this network and you unplug it and the code for the alternator goes away, then replace the active grille shutter. What do you see wrong with that? Well, what about the code for active grille shutter communication? There's a separate code for that, and we don't have that. We just have the generator code or the alternator communication code. So that's a red flag. 012D. That means the computer is totally happy talking to the active grille shutter. Why the hell would you replace it? Twice. Because the flowchart told them so. This is how the dealers operate. They're just robots and they go by the flowchart. So they're going to keep installing a new grille shutter every single time this code comes up, and they unplug it, clear the codes, and like, oh, it didn't come back. It must be a bad active grille shutter. So obviously that's not the case. This has been replaced twice. Let me pull up the code for the active grille shutter. It's also a U code, just to be 100% accurate. So the strategy here, I don't know what the code number is, right? Because it never set. But we will just type in shutter in the search box, and here we go. Testing and inspection. We'll show more. There you go. Lost communication with active grille shutter U0284. So, pinpoint test A. So it's a separate code. And it's, you know, its own diagnostic tree. We don't have this code, so I'm assuming if you unplug it, you would get the code, but they're only focusing on one code at a time, so it's kind of like siloed. We're just looking at the alternator. If you unplug this and this goes away, that must mean this is bad. That's not the whole picture. So that would be a completely inaccurate diagnosis. Let's keep reading the flowchart. So this is where we were, F2. So they installed this is basically as far as they got, and they replaced the active grille shutter twice. Now they say compare generator B+ circuit to battery voltage. So this is basically a voltage drop from the alternator to the battery. Measure connectors. Is the voltage within 0.5 volts? I'm sure it is. It's a brand new vehicle. Check the generator LIN, local interconnect network circuit, for a short to voltage. Again, if this tree was either pulled up or pulled down and the whole network was down, we would get both codes, this U012D and the active grille shutter code, which is the U0284, and we never had that. So now logically, what are the possibilities here? What if we had an open wire somewhere between splice S176 and the alternator? So basically, poor connection. Then the PCM could still talk to the active grille shutter, but maybe sometimes would lose communication with the alternator. That's a possibility. Okay? Another option is the alternator has a poor battery positive connection or poor ground. So this alternator just has a fat cable going to the battery. That's the charging cable, positive. It's grounded on the engine block, and it has a LIN wire. So only 3 things it needs to function. And if it loses communication, it's either losing power or ground, which I really don't think is the case, or there's a problem with broken wire here. That's a possibility. But again, how could it be broken once a year? That doesn't make any sense either. Or it could be a defective alternator. So there's a little computer in here. It's a microprocessor inside the alternator. Now, again, I don't mean to rant, but why do they have to make everything a separate module? Yes, you can get more information, this and that, but the more modules you have in a vehicle, the harder it is going to be to keep that vehicle on the road as time goes on, because the modules are very proprietary. Could Dorman make an alternator that would actually work on this vehicle? Not a chance. Could any aftermarket do it? I would doubt it. But Ford is probably going to discontinue this alternator in 5 to 7 years. Maybe it's already in back order. Who knows? And then you're screwed. So this is the way new cars are going. Keep that in mind. They are designed to be disposable. If any one of these 50 computers goes haywire, a lot of them are tied together, it affects the drivability of the car, and if it's not available, the owner is really screwed. It's out of warranty. What are you going to do? So keep that in mind. But let's go back to the diagnosis. What can we check here to give the customer our honest opinion? I'm guessing we're not going to find any issues at all, because it happens a few times a year, but we can still do the basic checks. Alright, so basically, step 1, I want to verify wiring integrity of this LIN wire. Can it carry some current like a test light? And then where do we want to check that? Well, the only place that the problem could be is between S176 and the alternator, as I said before, because this line was never interrupted. There was never a code for the active grille shutter, so this leg is fine. So how do we check wiring integrity from S176 to the alternator? What we can do is, what's easiest to get to here? The PCM is way down by the left front wheel, behind fender liners. The connectors are all sealed and locked in, so I don't want to go to the PCM just yet. Active grille shutter connector, potentially we could go there. C122, we know C122 has no issues because this leg was always good. We can unplug it here and do the load check of the wire from C122 pin 1 to the alternator itself, C1104B. Just a single wire connector. So, install from battery positive to here, test light, we can make that a 1 amp. And then here, again, test light to ground. We hook that up. This test light, so 300 milliamps, should light brightly. This one might glow a little bit. And then we can measure voltage right here, so V1, and right here, V2. If there's a poor connection with 300 milliamps of current traveling through this wire, V1 will be different than V2. V2 will be a little lower if there's a drop. If V1 equals V2, within a few millivolts, then good. If V2 is less than V1, then bad. Then we're going, maybe there's a bad splice, maybe C146 is affected. But you don't want to disturb the harness. You don't want to disturb C146 because that could potentially be part of the problem. You disturb it, you fix it, we're done. And when you're dealing with a problem that occurs once a year or a few times a year, we want to have as much, maximize our chances of finding a problem, if there is a problem. If that all checks out, then my honest recommendation would be to try a new alternator. It's under warranty. They fired the Active Grille Shutter twice. That didn't help. Why not replace the alternator? It's the dealer. They can do that. So let's try that. Let's find C122 or C1651, whichever one's easier to get to. Find that pin and send some voltage to the alternator. Alright, so looking up the locations of these connectors, C122 is right by the passenger side frame rail. That goes to our Active Grille Shutter C1651 on this harness. And then C146 is over here, so the engine computer is down here, and this goes from this blue harness to the red harness to the alternator. Alright, so let's try to find these and see what's easier to get to. We want to get to either the Active Grille Shutter or C122, and then the other side will be the alternator. Alright, so this is how the car came to me. Where's the beauty cover? They've replaced the Active Grille Shutter twice, and that requires tearing the whole front end apart. Like I see this clamp right here is just kind of loose. They didn't put that back on the radiator. Oh, there's a little rubber grommet hanging out here. That probably goes to the beauty cover somewhere. So, attention to detail, people. There's probably frustration here, but you still have to, if you're going to do the work, do it 100%. So C146 is that connector right there. So pretty easy to get to, but that's the one we don't want to touch. There is the PCM right there by the fender liner, and the connectors are from the bottom. Alternator is obviously right here. And I mean, there's hoses everywhere. I see the main positive post. And the LIN wire is right next to it, but I have no idea how to get my hand in there to unplug that. Maybe we'll find a way. Then C122 is actually below the frame rail. That connector right there. Yep, there it is. So we can unplug that hopefully pretty easily. So if we get there and the alternator, we'll be able to do that load test on the LIN wire. Okay, so actually from underneath, if we take off the splash shield, there's our alternator, and there is the single LIN wire connector with that red locking tab. Then connector C122 is right here. Perfect. So to set this up, we're going to load that LIN wire with 12 volts with a 1 amp test light. You might say, is that safe for the battery or for the engine computer? Well, to be 110% safe. Now we don't want to, you know, mess this car up during testing. The circuits are well protected, but if it's easy to do, just disconnect the negative battery cable, and that way when you run a test light from here to that LIN wire, it won't be able to, for example, make its way to ground through the PCM and fry something. So that's always a good idea. If we're just doing wiring integrity checks, you know, load test, and that wire is connected to the PCM, especially if it's, you know, not a driver wire, if it's like a low voltage sense wire or communication wire, we'll just unplug the negative battery cable to play it safe, and we'll run some current through that wire. Okay, so battery ground is disconnected, and I have the yellow and black jumpers going down there from the battery, so we have a good power and ground for our test light tests. Next, unplug the alternator. There's a single pin LIN wire, and that's you know, I have an AES wave adapter in that, and then C122 pin 1, the same violet and brown wire, I have that an adapter on that. So AES wave adapter kit is absolutely essential to make good connections to those pins. So that is coming from, you know, the harness side. This is also the harness side. So let's look at the diagram, what we're measuring. Okay, so we're at C122, have this unplugged, we're measuring that way, and alternator's unplugged, we're measuring this way. So step one, let's check one. Let's measure the resistance between here and here. I expect it's going to be 0 ohms, and then we'll load test the wire and see what happens. Guys, I don't believe this reading. 22 ohms. This is supposed to be just a straight shot wire. So if that's a problem, we could fix this, no parts required. So we just measured from here to here 22 ohms. Wow. Well, what's in between? We have splice S176 and C146. Now, since we know that there's a problem here just with an ohm meter, I'm not going to connect the test lights yet because we don't need to. If there's a resistance, then, you know, let's say there's a little green crusty or something. If you run current through there, that might temporarily fix the problem. So if we have a bad resistance reading, there is no need to load test the wire. Let's find the problem while it's happening. I'm going right after C146 now, and then we can measure this way and this way with the ohm meter and see if there's an issue. So this is kind of exciting.